Hello BookTube, this has been a poetry-heavy weekly reads, bookended by two bells. The first bell of which is A Brief History of Seven Killings by Marlon James. This is the fourth time I've bailed on this book, and hopefully this will be the last. Although I said that after the third bailing as well. A Brief History of Seven Killings is a historical novel set mostly in Jamaica between 1976 and 1991, with a sojourn in New York City or maybe also Miami. I've never gotten that far. The book mostly centers on Jamaican gang life, with each section a single day, with the first two parts focused on the day before and the day of the attempted assassination of Bob Marley by Jamaican gangsters. Each section is narrated by a rotating cast of characters in the first person. I first read this book, or attempted to read this book, shortly after it won the Booker Prize in the 2010s. I did not get on with it much. I don't think I got out of the prologue, maybe the first chapter. And I didn't think of the book again until 2022, when Kieran of Katie Books created a trio of top 10 recommendation videos. 10 classics you must read, 10 modern classics you must read, which covered the 20th century, and 10 contemporary classics you must read, which covered the 21st century. Steve Donahue responded to those videos, as did I. However, in Steve's contemporary classics video, I noted that one of the books I think we would have shared in common as a top 10 contemporary classic, but two or three of Steve's recommendations, books on the list, were ones that I had previously bailed on. And that gave me the idea to do a bail redemption project where I read books that I previously bailed on in the hopes that I can redeem them, actually finish them on a second or third or however many times it takes me to finish it. And one of the books I selected was A Brief History of Seven Killings. However, on that reading, as with all of the books that I selected and actually added to my library, because at the time I think I had to collect almost all of them, they were all bail redemption rejections, which is I bailed on them again. So A Brief History of Seven Killings continued to languish in my collection until this month, in April, when I was watching a video from Scott of Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, who co-hosts monthly or an event in May called Misery May. The theme this year is Misery Around the World. Scott did a video of recommendations around the world, and A Brief History of Seven Killings was included in that video. So I thought, maybe I could give it another go. At the time, I was also feeling a bit of an urge for more classics, canonical, modern, and contemporary fiction, poetry, and drama. So I decided to give this a third bail redemption, would have been a second bail redemption shot. It didn't go very far. I made it to the second chapter when I decided to bail on it again because I just wasn't into it. And at that point I was thinking, okay, I'm pretty much done with this novel. But over the course of May, I have had some success with revisiting books, mostly poetry, that I hadn't got on with so far this year. So I thought maybe I'll give this book yet another chance. So I did. I did make it a little bit further this time than I did last time. I got to about 70 pages before I decided, no, I do not like this book. I do not connect with it. It doesn't interest me. No. And I think the issue with A Brief History of Seven Killings for me, as well as what else I've read by Marlon James, which is only Black Leopard, Red Wolf, is I don't really connect with his style. It just doesn't appeal to me. And I think in this book, having so many characters, they don't quite come together. They just don't. They feel very unfinished, I think. And it's probably because over the course of, them constantly reappearing, they might become more complete towards the end, but it just, no. So, Bill, redemption, rejection again. And this time, I think it will be the last time. Although I said that before, didn't I? Anyway, so after I decided to bail on A Brief History of Seven Killings, I decided to redeem Aurora, Americana by Myronn Hardy. Now, I have read this book before and finished it shortly after I picked it up 2 years ago, or thereabouts. This is, I think this is Hardy's most recent collection. Certainly his more recent one with Princeton University Press. And I quite liked revisiting the book. I didn't quite get on with it when I tried it when I wanted to read it in February, but coming back to it in May actually worked quite a bit. I liked it. So the next two books I had thought about holding off until July. But as things panned out, I decided to read them during the work week, Sunday in the work week in May. So first up is Bonefires by Mark Jarman. So this is a new and selected collection of Jarman's poetry, and I think it's mostly okay. I didn't necessarily love the collection. There are a few poems that I quite liked, but quite a bit that I was indifferent to. I think Jarman is probably not a poet that I'm going to actively collect. I enjoyed Jane Kenyon's collected poems a lot more. I rather liked pretty much everything in this collection. So I really enjoyed the 3 days it took me to read it. And during the course of this week, and actually last week as well, which was rather poetry heavy as well, I've been thinking about restarting Poetry Thursdays. I did Poetry Thursdays late last year, but dropped off doing it this year, and I'm kind of regretting it. So I think what I might do if I have some time is to go through some of the poetry collections I have and note down some poems that I would like to read if I do decide to start making Poetry Thursday videos. Now, moving on to the second bale of the reading week is Embers of the Hands, Hidden Histories of the Viking Age by Eleanor Barraclough. So this book appeared earlier today with my insane, doomed to fail June reading plan. And I mentioned that since today and tomorrow, I really didn't have anything planned, that I could try this book and read it today and tomorrow. So I started it today, and I really did not like it. So this book is about the peoples of Scandinavia during the mid 8th century to the beginnings of the 11th century or 12th century, depending when you want to put a stop to the age of Nordic raiding, what most people call Viking raids. So this book is more about the everyday lives of the Scandinavians, and is composed of a number of chapters. So, love, travel, belief, bodies, home, play, and freedom, and bookending at the beginnings and endings of the so-called Viking Age. I'm not the biggest fan of this kind of history. It's quite popular nowadays to focus more on everyday lives than grand sweeping narratives or the so-called big events. But and I thought the first kind of chapter, the prologue, kindling, was just weird, and the introduction was just absolutely horrendous. It just put me off completely. I mean, the book wasn't quite so bad as one of those books that really reads as the script for a BBC special or a PBS special, but it came pretty dang close. So I'm rather annoyed with myself that I did not do due diligence and check this book out, read a synopsis, read a sample of the book before I bought it. Anyway, so what will be my reading plan for this coming reading week? So since that bail, I'm going to be reading some manga all this weekend. So I'm hoping to get to at least 6, so certainly 6 volumes, hopefully 9 volumes of Twin Star Exorcists, starting with volume 10. Twin Star Exorcists is by Yoshiaki Sukeno and is about 2 prodigy exorcists, Rokuro and Benio. At the beginning of the series, Rokuro wants nothing to do with being an exorcist. He had a traumatic incident that really put him off of wanting to be an exorcist. Benio still wants to be an exorcist. They are informed by their superiors that they are the Twin Star Exorcists. Super exorcists who are fated to produce an even more super exorcist baby that will bring about the end of a 1,000-year war between exorcists and a race of demons called Kigare that are born out of excess yin energy. Gradually, over the course of the early volumes, Rokuro and Benyo fall in love and aren't so opposed to this forced arrangement. But things are not going quite their way. Benyo has a psychotic twin brother who is responsible for the incident that traumatized Rokuro, and he's basically still being a baddie. And so the Rokuro and Benyo aspire to go to Tsuchimikado Island, where the exorcists are the authority, and where the main front lines of the battle between the exorcists and the Kagare is taking place. so that they can fight Yuto, Benyo's twin brother. However, at the end of Volume 9, Rokuro is allowed to go, but Benyo can't. She's seemingly lost her exorcist abilities, and that has always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I think. Both times I've gotten to this point in the manga, that rubbed me the wrong way. And so I'm hoping that, as much as I like this series, and I do, I'm hoping this reading of the 10, 11, and 12, which is where I stopped the last time I read the series, and then moving on to hopefully Volume 18, can really get me over this hump. I will report back. I'm also going to be reading the first volume of Still Ball Run by Hirohiko Araki. This is part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So this is the 7th part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and is set in a new universe. It's set in the late 19th century and is about an epic cross-country race from San Francisco to New York City. So this has elements of the Western, which is why I'm reading it in part for June on the Range. So I think for the first part of the work week, I'm going to be reading Queer Nature, edited by Michael Walsh. This is a poetry anthology about nature written by queer poets. I've read this a few times and really enjoyed it. So looking forward to another reread. And if everything goes according to plan, I should finish Queer Nature on Wednesday. And so I think Thursday and Friday I will try to redeem Flint by Leah Lamar, which I tried to read last year for June on the Range. Flint is about an old, aging gunslinger he might not be that old, who's dying. And so he's coming back to his old stomping grounds to have one last adventure, where he ends up helping an heiress protect her property from unscrupulous speculators and rival ranchers. When I read it, or attempted to read it last year, I didn't get on with it at all. Maybe things will change, maybe not. If it doesn't change, there's always more Twin Star Exorcists, or perhaps One Piece, and I will report back how that shapes up on next Friday with next weekly reads. So what else am I planning on doing next week? I don't quite know. I think I'm going to play it by ear. There are still some discussion videos I would like to do, but they haven't have difficulty with discussion videos. But I'll try to do it, and maybe other videos as well. So any booktube and also there might be at least 1 or 2 book hauls, or a manga haul and a book haul, depending how things pan out. So any booktube, until I see you next week, thank you. Have a great rest of your evening and weekend, and see you on Monday.